Hello and welcome to another episode of the djproject Criterion Collection. And continuing right along, we have Spine 44, The Red Shoes, directed by Powell Emeric Pressburger, 1948. Now, one of the things about the earlier Spine numbers, I believe before, I would say like before Spine 60, I guess. I hesitated to, well, when I initially got into buying Criterion DVDs, I first approached it on like a title basis. So I got like the Seventh Seal very early on because I knew that was going to be Essential Cinema, and there was a few others that I got very early on. And then I realized that because I was starting to do this in 2002, 2003, there were already some improvements made in terms of home video presentation, like the widescreen presentation, anamorphically enhanced, and so on. And as I got into some of the titles, there were some questions about the earlier Criterion releases. So I held off on getting those, and I usually waited until there was some kind of reissue that was there to make things better. So that's why A Night to Remember I postponed until I saw that it was reissued. And The Red Shoes is another example. It was a title that I felt I really needed to see, but I think I really wanted to see it well, and I had a feeling that there was going to be a better transfer. And sure enough, in 2009, there was an effort undertaken to restore the film. This was in part spearheaded by Martin Scorsese, who considers this to be one of his all-time favorite films. And sure enough, it looks gorgeous. It was one of those things where I'm glad I waited. I'm glad I waited to get this. I only got this last year, so I've only seen it a few times, but rewatching it recently for this, I went, man, I should see this more often. I could tell why Martin Scorsese loves this, and Brian De Palma, and I would even say that also Wes Anderson. And actually, he has said that Powell-Pressburger was a big influence on him, particularly The Red Shoes. And it's very clear during the titles. You watch this and you go, ah, that's where he gets it. Again, going back to that inspiration versus hack thing, Wes Anderson is not a hack. He just knows a lot of films and knows how to use it. But anyways, The Red Shoes. But like I said, gorgeous film. I mean, yes, people talk about the Wizard of Oz as being the Technicolor marvel, and a few other films that were shot, but this is inspiring. And I think what makes it equally inspiring is the story itself and kind of what it explores, what it conveys. And really at the heart of it this is a look at creativity and people of creativity. And so I would definitely recommend, I'm kind of getting, I know this sounds like the end of an episode rather than the beginning, but I would say that if you are somebody who has ever been involved in any kind of collaborative creative project, whether it be playing in a music ensemble or singing in a music ensemble, whether it be in a theater production, whether it be straight theater or musical theater, working on a film project, anything where you have to get people together to work towards a common vision or common goal. This is a great film to watch because it covers that. And then the other aspect of the centerpiece is the ballet of The Red Shoes itself. But anyway, so this is probably going to be a long one, maybe not as long as Andrei Rublev, but there's a lot that can be talked about. The Red Shoes is based on the Hans Christian Andersen tale about a someone who gets oh, excuse me. Anyway, the dancer finds these red shoes, and suddenly she finds herself not being able to stop dancing. Like, she just constantly dances to the point where everything else starts to fly by. People go away, time goes away, everything, and she keeps on dancing, and to the point where even she's exhausted by all of this, but the shoes will not let up, and eventually the shoes and they end up killing her. And so it's yeah. Hans Christian Andersen is known for his cheery tales. Have you actually read The Little Mermaid, like the actual tale? It's but at any rate, and what Powell-Pressburger did with this is turned it into, well, first off, turned it into a demonstration of what cinema could really do, and can do for the arts before it, as well as putting its own spin on it. But also, I think they used this as a chance to illustrate what happens, or what the price of having a creative ambition. One of the famous dialogue exchanges happens early on. The story goes, there's a woman who's the niece of a aristocrat, Victoria Page, or Vicky, played by Moira Schreier. She's proven, but not a proven professional. She's had years of dancing training. She's done dances for smaller companies, nothing like the Royal Ballet or anything like that. But she has an emerging career, and her aunt, after a ballet performance of Heart of Fire, which involves this prestigious ballet company, Ballet Lermontov, run by Boris Lermontov, played by Anton Walbrook. She uses this as an opportunity to get, to help her niece with her dancing career, and they eventually do meet. He brushes off any kind of demonstration. He goes to this party, and the Lord Neston asks him to see her niece dance, and he brushes it off, like, I don't want to have any part of it, and it's all dreadful. And then he goes off to get a drink, and unbeknownst to him, Vicky's right there, and he says, like, oh, I just got saved from this awful dancing demonstration, and she lets him know that, yeah, you spared me, you spared yourself from seeing me, and kind of like, oh, oops. It's not too late to apologize, is it? It's like, yes. Oops. But anyways, that's not the exchange. The key bit of exchange is when Lermontov asks her, why do you want to dance? And she replies, why do you want to live? And then he answers, well, I don't know exactly why, but I must. She says, that's my answer too. So clearly she has this burning desire to dance, and she goes out of her way, and even embarrassing herself in some instances, but persistence and everything just it finally lands her a position in the company. And in fact, when they leave London for Paris, she is asked to join the company, and that's when she knows that she had made it. And when Irina, one of the main principals, announced that she had to leave the company so that she can be married, and this is before they leave for Paris to Monte Carlo, she then is offered the chance to be principal. and principal in a new ballet that Lermontov was working on, entitled The Red Shoes. And at the same time, there's another, and as this is going on, there's another character, his plot, a young composer named Julian Craster, who studies at the Royal Academy. They say the Academy, but it's presumed to be the Royal Academy of Music. And in fact, he's at this Heart of Fire performance too, and he finds out that several of his compositions were incorporated into the score. He goes into it to listen to his professor and presumably composition mentor, because he had a hand in this ballet. And then he finds out over the course of this performance that a lot of his music is used in the score, but he does not get the credit for this. And this drives him to want to speak with Lermontov, and eventually he does get a position in the company as well, initially as a deputy conductor and coaching the orchestra. So all of this is happening at the same time. And so eventually you get to this point with Monte Carlo where Lermontov wants to make this ballet called The Red Shoes. He asked Julian to redo. Initially, it was portions of the score that he felt was very lacking, but then eventually he asked him to completely redo the score. So it's entirely new music setting, and he asked that Vicky Page be the principal dancer. And the rehearsals occur, and there is this. Julian and Vicky kind of lock horns on doing things. The big conflict between them is on tempo. That he conducts the music faster than she's able to dance, and this causes some little bit of tension. But you can imagine there's a little bit of a comedy element. This is not really a comedy at all. There's a bit of a where there's the lovers misunderstanding, and they realize, oh, they fall in love, and this happens after the performance. And then there's the centerpiece, and I'll get into the centerpiece on its own, but it really is 30, I mean, that sequence is pretty much worth it alone. If you just see that sequence, or if it was just taken out, it's worth the price of admission. I mean, it's that inspiring, it's that captivating. But I'll get into that a little bit later. So the ballet happens, and it's a resounding success. And it kind of starts her career, but it also starts the romance it starts the romance of Vicky and Julian. And Lermontov is not very pleased, because for Lermontov, who is the owner of the company, the producer of the company, for him, he lives for dance. He lives for this. He lives for that art. He tries to live for it to his fullest, and he expects others to follow suit. And of course, this is the other snag with engaging in a collaborative creative project. Creative people are known for their egos, and not necessarily a bad thing. Not necessarily like, oh, I'm not talking self-centered. I'm just talking that they have a very strong individual personality. They have their own vision. They follow their own muses. They have their own instincts wired in a particular way. Some things are more important to them than others, and that becomes evident as they go through life. And that's where the tension arises whenever you engage in a creative project, is when you have this clash of egos. And sometimes it works out, and sometimes it can even work for the benefit of a project. But other times it can just cause headaches and a lot of turmoil. And Lermontov is somebody who lives for his chosen art. For him, it's all about dance, and everybody else and everyone he chooses to be a part of this company. And you really get the sense that this company is a family. Often a lot of times with good moments. I mean, there's a camaraderie, but you also get the sense that there's maybe some slight dysfunction going on. So it's a little bit of both. I mean, any kind of company of creative people, whether it be an ensemble, any kind of ensemble, or any kind of theater company, you're going to get that feeling of camaraderie, and that comes through. So that's why I say that if you've ever been involved in any of those things, you need to see the Red Shoes if you haven't already. Again, this gets my high recommendation for this. Anyways, so naturally, Lermontov, when he sees about this romance, he's quite upset, and he's known to be upset whenever anybody thinks of dance as being second, and so this happens with Vicky, and Lermontov keeps reminding her, or reminds her, not keeps reminding her, just reminds her of her earlier statements about how she lives for dance, and that for her dancing is really, really important. And basically he questions, Lermontov questions Vicky on her romantic pursuit. Like, why are you doing this when you know in your heart of hearts you really want to dance? And so she leaves the company to marry Julian. And for a while, she's very happy, and he's very happy, but you also get the sense that there is this desire on her part to dance, and she hasn't done as much dancing as she did with Ballet Lermontov. As far as Ballet Lermontov, he mothballs the Red Shoes. He considers the Red Shoes to be exclusively Vicky's domain, and so no one would ever. So that ballet would never be performed by that company as long as she's not around. And eventually there is a chance meeting, again in Monte Carlo, between Lermontov and Vicky, and Lermontov convinces her to do a performance of the Red Shoes. And she agrees to do that. And, alright, spoilers. She does go through with it, but she also finds that, but this performance happens the same night as the performance of the debut performance of Julian Craster's new opera, Cupid and Psyche. How appropriate. And she finds out on the radio that he is not able to conduct it. He is taken ill. And then a few seconds later, he shows up at the door. This is why. And at the end, she's confronted with, does she go with Julian, or does she do this performance? And she is genuinely torn because she loves Julian, but clearly she loves dancing as well. And Julian does leave, and she's upset by this. And then as she's taken onto the stage, she then leaves. And then, while wearing the red shoes, which I've been told that's a plot inconsistency right there, but but she wears the red shoes, and she leaps from a overhead balcony and lands on the railroad tracks. And so back in the theater, Lermontov hears about this, and he goes on stage, and he says very, very intensely and passionately, he says, "Miss Page is unable to dance tonight, nor indeed any other night." But he resumes the performance, and because according to him, that's what she would have wanted. And what happens is that the full ballet is performed. Obviously, you don't see the entire thing because you've already seen that earlier, but you see the bookends of that performance. But it goes on as before, except there is a single spotlight that is supposed to be where Vicky is. So everything is done assuming that Vicky is there, and clearly the company is upset. And then back at the station, or back at the railroad tracks, Vicky, all battered and bloody, asks Julian, as he holds her in her arms, to take off her red shoes, just like in the ballet. And now everything about this says that she died, and that makes a lot of sense. You do this big leap and you fall into the railroad tracks. Yeah, the chances of survival are very slim, but she has this moment, and it kind of makes you wonder, okay, is she just going to be completely battered, or she's actually dead? But everybody says that, and the way, given what people have said, the circumstances of that moment, and also what Lermontov says, it's presumed that she did die, but she lived long enough to give that final request. I call it the Trinity death mode. Anyways, but yeah, that's basically the plot. And yes, this is, as I said earlier, there is a plot inconsistency, and that's something that Powell-Pressburger had talked about amongst themselves. And while they do acknowledge that it is a consistency, it is something that does fit thematically with the story, and it does tie in with the original Hans Christian Andersen tale, and it also helps, I don't know, not vindicate the characters, but it brings some sort of reconciliation to the characters. But anyways, so what makes this film so inspiring? What makes this film an all-time favorite for Martin Scorsese? And anyone who knows anything about Martin Scorsese knows that he is a through and through cinephile. Just absolutely lives for film and goes out of his way to do everything with film. What is it about this film that's so inspiring? Well, in revisiting it, I think it's because it's so infused with creativity all around. The story itself, I mean, for for instance, the casting of it, for Vicky Page, Maura Schreier was not an actor. This actually made her acting career, but she was actually known as a dancer, and actually Powell and Pressburger wanted to cast dancers for the dancing roles, like dancers that could do some acting, rather than having actors who could dance. Slight reverse of what happened later with Black Swan. I'll get to that a little bit later, maybe. But at any rate, so like everything about the production is so infused with creativity, and if you're creative yourself, or at the very least creatively inclined, you're gonna feel that, and it's that way of connecting. It's the same thing like with other films that exercise other traits that you seem to have, and you just feel like there's this symbiotic or umbilical you feel like there's this umbilical cord that just is immediately generated between you and the film, and you just feel that connection. Not only that connection, but just that nourishment and inspiration. And it's infused with that, and so it's there in the casting, and it's there with the team involved. The cinematographer for this was Jack Cardiff, who would do other films for Powell-Pressburger, like Black Narcissus, another one I'm going to cover eventually. And Cardiff, from what I remember of him, he was very much an artist in his own right, which actually upset the Technicolor people. The thing with Technicolor, because it was a proprietary technology, whenever a film uses Technicolor, again, like you see in the film, whenever you see a film that says "color by Technicolor," on the production itself, there actually was a on-site specialist from Technicolor, from Technicolor, there to make sure that everything works, because shooting on Technicolor, the camera, you actually are shooting 3 negatives at the same time, and they are supposed to keep records on 3 different colors. There's a red record, there's a green record, and a blue record, and then the color is of course it's the color arises from the blending of these 3 strips. And and I believe you can control the exposure. I forget the detailed inner workings of the camera. I believe you can control the exposures on each of them, or to kind of give you more of one color and such. But the reason why I kind of remember this is because the thing with Cardiff is that he had a different way of working on this, and would infuriate the Technicolor specialist on set. It's like, you can't do that. And it's the kind of thing where to him, to the Technicolor specialist, he's representing the company, and the company of course has policies and expectations on how something should be. And then Cardiff comes in with these seemingly out of left field ideas on how to do it, and he's operating more intuitively. And Cardiff has acknowledged that he was inspired by particular painters. Vermeer is a big one for him. And so that's how he approached it. So he's approaching the technology in his own way, which is different than the way that's expected with Technicolor. And of course, Technicolor gets all mad. See, there you go. Life imitates art, art imitates life. But the result is just absolutely gorgeous. It's really, really inspiring. And now I want to talk about the centerpiece of the film, the ballet itself. Now, the ballet itself, what makes this really special is that this is presumably the performance that she gives, but the way it's shot and the way it's all played out, it's actually played out cinematically. It's not looking at just a bare stage and you see the sets change and everything. You see this as if it were a film. It is shot cinematically. And so while the set, and this is not to say that they didn't use location. I mean, it was all done in the studios. The sets are designed as if it were theater sets, but the way it's positioned, the way that it transitions from one room to the next, it's not, you couldn't do it on an actual stage performance. And this is where I feel that this is both a nod to the art forms that have come before cinema, especially dance and especially theater. It's saying that, you know, we understand we're an amalgamation of the, and also music. We're an amalgamation of these different. It's an interdisciplinary art form. It's an interconnected art form. But while there are these nods and these traits that are inherent in cinema, cinema can also do some things that the other art forms can't, especially theater. And it's in this. It's both in the way that the room seems to change, or the space. I should say the space can dynamically change from one cut to the next. And there's also some optical compositing, which for anyone who's, you know, not it may take a getting a little used to, because we're used to more smoother compositing of elements to make it seem seamless. So you can kind of see how it was put together, but nevertheless, it's still very inspiring. Considering this was released in 1948, just like with Beauty and the Beast, this is one of those films where it still feels very fresh and inspiring, even though the technology has come a long way since that time. But at any rate, so it's all executed in a very cinematic way, and which makes it a little bit abstract, but it also helps to really come away appreciating dance as an art form. And there's even moments where it clarifies what dance moves are supposed to represent. And this is true with superimposition. And this is very similar to what happens in Black Swan, where Nina does this really fast sort of pirouette, and the way that she moves her arms and the way she spins around. On top of that, you see this. You see her actually turning into a swan, and the way she moves is supposed to be like a swan, and that makes the point that her dance is supposed to be like this, as well as some other things that go on with her. slight aside, when I saw Black Swan, my immediate reaction coming out of the theater was basically this film took The Red Shoes, Repulsion, and Videodrome and put it in a blender. And that's how I see Black Swan. It's an amalgamation of those three films. Again, Darren Aronofsky is not a hack. but I digress. But yeah, the ballet itself is just really, really inspiring. And what also makes it inspiring, I think, is something you certainly get this from this film, but I feel that what makes it so great is that you feel like you're a part of the dance, and that you move with it as you're watching this, and that has to do with the camera. In a way, the camera becomes another dancer, and it's that integration between it's that not integration. It's that interaction between the camera and the dance that really makes it engaging and inspiring. Like it's not just you sitting down and watching this dance like, oh, that's nice, but you really feel it. You feel the movement, and it makes you appreciate the movements there and what goes into it, and that's what makes it really, really inspiring. And I can see why a lot of directors find this very inspiring. Again, Martin Scorsese calls this one of his all-time favorite films, and so does Brian De Palma, and so does Wes Anderson. And if you know anything of their work, you can, and then when you see The Red Shoes, you can see how it inspired and influenced them. After seeing this myself, I feel great about this. Like, wow, this is fantastic. Why don't I see this more often? And yes, I came in more late in the game, but I also see this as it was worth the wait because of the 2009 restoration efforts. It looks fantastic. It looks as pretty much as good as you're ever going to get, and it looks wonderful, and it's just really, really inspiring. Watching it again, it also reminds me that because as far as Powell and Pressburger, the only other Powell-Pressburger films that I've seen of theirs is Black Narcissist and Tales of Hoffman, which both of them I do have, and so they will be covered in the future. And then for Powell himself, I also have Peeping Tom. And the thing I remember about all of them is that they all feature redheads. So to that I say, Malcolm Powell loves redheads. And it's red, and there's red seems to be like a reoccurring color in the Powell or Powell-Pressburger films that I've seen. It's a passionate color. What can I say? But at any rate, but it's just through and through. It's just an inspiring film. Especially if you are of the creative minded, and like I said, if you've done any kind of work, whether it be like performed in an orchestra, excuse me, or any kind of music group, if you've been involved in theater, whether it be dance or music or just straight theater. I mean, you will find something. I mean, it's not just. I mean, it is hailed as perhaps one of the greatest films about dance ever made. But I feel that it's not, while it definitely centers on dance, everything about it is dance, I say that it's also more, it's broader than that. I say that this is one of those films where it is a celebration of art. And it's a look at what art does. How it affects the viewer, and also how it affects the performers, the creators, and there are some heavy price tags that can be done. There are some costs involved in the creative pursuit, one myth that came to mind, of course, Cupid and Psyche is mentioned as Castor's opera. Castor's opera, sorry. But another myth I kept thinking of was Icarus, and it's just that ambition of soaring high and reaching to heights that you never thought you could ever achieve. But eventually your wings can burn, and you do crash. Whether it's in the Mediterranean somewhere or near the Mediterranean in another locale. But there is a price to be paid, and you even see this in Lermontov, because with Lermontov, in spite of his great love and passion for ballet, he does come off as a very isolated and alienating figure. He can rub off people in the wrong way. He's often, you see him a lot in hotel rooms where he's just by himself, with the exception of a servant who's there to help serve him breakfast and read his mail and so forth. But he's very much a man to himself. And in a way, you can see, in spite of all of his talk that, the dance is important and everything, the only other thing that he says that matters more is music. The music is all, because he tells Vicky that the music is what matters. You follow the music. But for him, it's all about dance, and this is the price that he paid. He's, of course, I don't know anyone who would want to be married to him, considering the way he can act at times and can be so focused and to the point of coming off as self-absorbed and completely unaware of everything else. It's just, for him, it just has that focus on dance. And this is the price that he paid. And Vicky also is confronted with that. She has this ambition, she has this drive. She's able to give that answer in the beginning. But then, as you find out when push came to shove, in a matter of speaking, she felt conflicted. And now, okay, I guess I can go on about this. I can also kind of cover, well, why does Vicky have to choose? Why does Vicky have to give up her ambitions? And it's the classic, career versus marriage, and I think that's unfair. I mean, I can understand why you could look at this as a feminist work, but at the same time, I also think that it is a bit unfair, because that conflict is always there, and I never got the feeling that women are thought of less. Really, I think the only person that really disapproves of any kind of romance that takes place is Lermontov. Everybody else, and this is like when Irina, the principal before Vicky, announces that she's going to be married and she's going to leave the company. Everybody, but Lermontov, everybody crowds around her. They hug her and they say, "Oh, congratulations! I wish for the best for you. Good luck!" And they really express their happiness. And they also know that, yes, she's going to be leaving, so they lose a member of the family. But they also believe that she's leaving for this other thing, and so they're fine with this. It's Lermontov that makes this an issue. And I would say that, if you want to take the feminist angle of it, you should really yell at Lermontov for making it an all or nothing, and putting that pressure on Vicky. Whereas I think for her, she does. I mean, it's not. You could argue either way, that whether she loves the dance more or loves Julian more, but but at the same time, I think it was unfair to put that pressure on her, considering that she does, she's genuinely talented at dance. She has the passion, she has the drive to dance, but she also has, she's also a part of this man's life, and it is a voluntary thing. I assume it's very mutual. There's no evidence of any kind of abuse or neglect. It's not that. Now, if there was, then I think it would make it very easy. You know, if Julian comes off as a complete jerk, you know, after the wedding, and just gets completely self-absorbed into his work. In fact, there's a really nice scene where both of them are in bed, separate twin beds. This was the 40s, and Julian is awoken with snatches of a melody. And he just hears this melody in his head, and this drives him to. We've all been there. Anyone who's ever created has had the 2 a.m. inspiration where you just like lying down and you hear something like, okay, I got to get up and write this down, and then you may end up like spending an hour or 3 hours when you probably could have been sleeping to do this. And so he's working on this, and Vicky senses this. And well, first she goes to the drawer and she sees her dancing shoes there, and you kind of get the sense that maybe she wants to do that too. But then she goes to the piano room and sees him working on this music, and she sits beside him, and actually Julian embraces her. So that, I mean, if that shows that there is a love there, and you know, certainly she loves him, but also he loves her. You know, he could have said, you know what, oh, I'm busy. You know, go make me a sandwich. None of that. It's just you know, there is a love there, and I guess maybe the one criticism you can make against him is that you feel that, well, she's not really fulfilled, but she also indicates that she's done some dancing. She's maybe not as much, not on the level of, say, Ballet Lermontov, but she still does it. And I like to think that as long as she's happy with where she is, then, you know, that's what should matter. But of course, for Lermontov, it doesn't. It's all about the dance. It's the dance. Yes, there is Diaghilev there, and it has been noted that Lermontov is kind of. In fact, this is the other thing. In the very beginning, there's that immediate disclaimer of any similarities to persons living or dead is entirely coincidental. Like, okay, which says this is not about Diaghilev, the famous owner of Ballet Russes. And in fact, the story of Lermontov and Vicky Page is similar to a story involving Diaghilev. There's also talk that there's some other people represented through Lermontov, including J. Arthur Rank, one of the producers or one of the distributors of the film, and Michael Powell himself. Just that sort of very domineering, commanding presence and so forth. But anyways. So, but yeah, I ended up going on about this. But, again, as you can tell by these, if you've seen enough of these, you kind of know what excites me. And this is one of those films that excites me because it talks about things that are very exciting to me. Which, in this case, it's the creative process. And I feel that this film is a celebration of that. It's a celebration of the arts, especially dance, but I would say that it's a celebration of the arts in general. And I would say that if you are the creative type, if you've been in any kind of creative activity, especially a collaborative one, you would love this film. You'll love this film hands down. And even if you're not, I would still recommend you watching because it is very inspiring. It's like I said, it's gorgeous. It's one of the most gorgeous Technicolor films ever made. Scorsese has said that himself. That and The River. He said that they're beautiful color films, and I would agree. It's just everything about it is just so. it's just so wondrous to watch. And I would high recommendations. Go see this if you haven't. Definitely check this out. You won't be disappointed. And definitely try to get and I know you can get stuff from all kinds of places. Criterion does is through Hulu Plus, so you can watch it there. You can get it on Netflix, only on DVD because the streaming is exclusive to Hulu, not to Netflix. But definitely get the recent 2010 reissue. Definitely check that out. You won't be disappointed, especially if you're the creative type. So yeah, the red shoes. And until next time, take care.